All right, as promised, I promised you that I would show you what I have done, so I am going to do that. So let me just bring up the index here and show you everything that I did, and that was my downfall. So as I think I mentioned to you previously, this is what my site looks like. It's not nearly as nice as a lot of yours. All right, the about page, etc. The HTML5 validation, and I'll show you that in just a second. But notice if I don't put anything in, I not only get the please fill out this field, but I get my own message that I put in there. The JavaScript validation, and don't even ask me about this orange thing. All right, but notice, for example, the ID number is required, and if I put it in there in the wrong format, I said it must be in that format, etc. So it works its way through that, and I'll show you that in just a minute. And the jQuery, where again, if I submit, notice I get all this. Does that make sense? That's what I was looking for in the first one. So very quickly, I want to show you what I did. But first, I just want to mention to you, if you notice, here's the index. Okay, here's the index right at the top. Here's the HTML5. It's exactly the same all the way through the first 37 lines. Those 37 lines are the same thing as these 37 lines, which are the same thing as these 37 lines, which is the same thing as these 37 lines. All right? And the footer stuff that's at the end is exactly the same also. So I'll quickly show you when we get done how I took this, basically grabbed all that stuff out and put it into HTML files, and then took all these files that you see right here, all the HTMLs, just save them as PHP files, and I can run them now as a PHP program. All right? So just taking it from the top, I don't think I have to go over the index page because that's just how I did it. All right? Like I said, a lot of you did it a lot better than I did, and that's fine. So I don't care about that one. I also don't care really about the about page. Again, as I asked you to do, I just literally went out to Uber's site and grabbed some of the stuff. It was either there or else it was from Wikipedia. I don't remember. All right? Okay, so for the HTML5 stuff, what I did, and this is what I was expecting you to do, all right, was to come in and, for example, let's just take a look at one of these fields. For example, here's the zip code. All right, I was expecting you to do something like this. At a minimum, set the type up, I set the name and the ID, set up a placeholder, and then set up some kind of a pattern. All right, and you could have gotten this. I've given you several different URLs, etc., that you can go to, like regularexpressions.info. But what this says right here is, okay, what I want to do is I can either put it in as 5, just 5 digits, or optionally, I can add a hyphen and 4 more digits. All right, and again, there are boatloads of sites out there that will give you that stuff. For instance, if I just came in here and I wrote down zip code, number, or number, dash, number, regular expression pattern. And you'll notice I may not find it right away, but this is the one I end up using a lot, html5pattern.com. And it's got, notice, a bunch of different stuff in it. Doesn't have everything that we needed, but notice there's postal codes. And if I go down to, or up to, American postal codes, as it says, format is either one of those. That's what I asked for. All right, I wasn't expecting here. Now, you could have literally, just so you know, just to show you this, you could have done it like this too. I could have created a pattern, and I could have said pattern equals, and I literally could have done it like this. I don't know why you'd want to do this, but I could have put in there, for example, 0 through 9, and then put in the number, etc. There's all sorts of ways that you can do this. Does that make sense to everybody? All right? I didn't really care how you did it. I just cared that you did it. All right? And when you look in here, this title, all right, what that's saying is, okay, in addition to what comes up where it says this is a required field, if you put a title thing in there, that will also show if there's an error. All right. And then there's an on change for this. And again, how did I find this out? I looked it up. And there are other ways that this can be done as well. All right. But I literally just started Googling stuff just to see what was out there. But I was expecting at a minimum that you were going to go and try to set up some kind of a pattern. And I did it this way just to show it to you. And I didn't, if you didn't do this, it's okay. Some people just put down 9 numbers. That was fine. But you may or may not know it. Your BTC ID number must start with 3 zeros. All right? It's not my rule. It's a Blackhawk rule. So I just said here 0 3 times, followed by any digit 6 times. Okay? And the same kind of thing. Again, they were all supposed to be required. All I did for first name, last name, address, and city is I made them required. And I didn't put any restrictions in there. Some of you did. You did a much better job than I did. All right? And that's fine. All right? And if you didn't put any more in there than that, that's also fine. So again, that was the zip code. Here was the email. And I thought I had a pattern in here. I guess I didn't. Okay. I did, but I took it out. But there was a pattern in here. Okay. And again, one of the sites that I ended up going to was, I think it's regexplib.com. I believe that's what it is. Regular Expression Library. All right. And so, for instance, email regular expression regexplib.com. All right. And notice, browse by category, regular expression library, emails. Emails that work 99.99% of the time. Now, I didn't use this one, but notice what they have in here. They even have it for every language. This seemed a little excessive to me, so I didn't use that one. But if you start going through the regular expression lib.com, what you'll find when you go through there is there was a pattern in there for email. Okay? And I think this is one of these is the one I ended up using. I don't remember which one it was. Okay? Also, if you didn't like that, notice, and this is the one that I gave you, regular expressions.info. That's the one they use. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do this, but at a minimum, if you put in some kind of pattern, you should have checked it to make sure that at least, all right, if you put in something simple, hello@goodbye.com or something, then it took it. Does that make sense? All right. Just like with the header, all the footer stuff, all that stuff that you see right here, this is the same. So what I ended up doing, and I'm going to show you both of these so you see what this looks like. This has got all of the header stuff in it. Then starting with line 38, it's got all of my content. My content in this case starts on line 38 and it ends on line 183. So I've got about 150 lines of content in there. Okay? And then afterwards, I've got about 30 or so more lines, 40, whatever it is, that are the same on every page. All right? So that was the first one. Any questions on what I was looking for in the HTML one? That didn't have any extra coding that you had to put in. All right? The other ones did. So the second one was the JavaScript. And I kept, when I was working through this, I did it. I did everything. I checked it. Boom, boom, boom. All of a sudden, stuff stopped working. All right? It got so bad, I had to go to the master, Mr. Wanda, with a couple of these to try to figure out what was wrong. And he figured out some of the problems I had, but not all of them. He said, that I don't have that time to figure out all the problems you have. But I wrote down everything in here. and I started thinking, okay, what do we need? Well, each one of those is required. All right, the state, since I just put in there Alabama, it technically is in there. So all of these are required. All right, and I said for the BTC ID number, that would be my format. All right, and I didn't even do the letters, numbers, and blanks only for this. The zip code had to be one of these two formats. The phone number had to be one of these two formats. And the email had to be, and I didn't even see it in there. There it is. It had to be a valid email. Does all that make sense? All right. So I grabbed this from the homework and put it in there. So this is what I did for mine. The first thing I did was I went and I set up some patterns that I could use. And again, here was my Blackhawk ID pattern, just to show you that's yet another way it could have been done. The \D means digits. So for instance, this first zip code pattern means 5 digits. This second zip code pattern means 5 digits and a hyphen and 4 digits. I did it a little bit different each time to show you. You didn't have to do it as one pattern. Here I've done it as 2. And I check for both of them. All right. This is the email. That was the one I want to show you. That was the regular expression live. And this is the one that I used from there. And again, if you're not super familiar with regular expressions, you should get familiar with regular expressions. They're used in virtually every kind of programming language. And all these two things are right here. They're just delimiters. I could have used anything, but usually forward slashes are used. This means starts with, the caret, the $sign means ends with, the \D means digits, so 5 digits followed by a hyphen, 4 digits, etc. So I set up all of those patterns. I set up one global pattern for my ID, 2 different zip code patterns, 1 pattern for my email, and 2 patterns for the phone. Questions on that? Anything on that doesn't make sense? All right. Then what I wanted to do here was I wanted to use the get element by ID, and I wanted to be able to grab all of those elements that I put into the form. Does that make sense? Somebody tell me, why did I do this? Because most of you didn't do that. What that does is back in the olden days, like maybe 5 or more years ago, people would fill out forms, and if fields, even if they were required, they just hit the space bar a couple times. And unless you check for, and you trim, what trim does is it gets rid of any leading blanks and any trailing blanks that are in there. All right? So I trimmed just to make sure, because I started doing it, and then I thought, I wonder. So I put in 5 blanks, and you can see, I went and some of the stuff when I was working in here, literally, I did this right away. This is the first thing that I did in my code. So I set up the patterns, I set up the values I'm grabbing from the form, I set up a few generic messages. So field is required, ID must be in this format, zip must be in this format, email must be in this format, phone must be in this format. But then I did this. And the reason that I did this big alert right here, all I did was I wanted to make sure that everything I grabbed from here was being grabbed correctly. So that's all I did. I wanted to check that first. But I watch, and again, I've said this before, and I'm as guilty of it as you are, but a lot of times with all of us, in our zeal to get it done, you don't do it like that. You type in 200 or 300 lines, and then you start testing it. It's not a good way to program. Just take my word for it. All right? So I did that first. Then I checked each field in turn. All right? So validate that the ID number can't be blank, and it must be in that kind of a format. So now I can check the length. And I can check the length. The reason that I did that was before I did it, I didn't have the trim in there, and I put blanks in. So if I put in for the first name blank, 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 it had a length that was 3, which is not equal to 0. All right? It would still fail this test, but now if I've got blank, blank, blank in there, it removes those blanks, so it literally is empty. So the length will be 0. So this is checking for a length of 0. And if it was a length of 0, what I did was I added right here, you say, well, what the heck is that ID number? Well, I really should have probably shown you that. So the JavaScript.html, what I did was on the end of each one of these things, I put a span in there. And for the span, I made the class error. Why? Because did I tell you that everything that was in there should be bolded and it should be red? That's all that error is. And I gave it an ID and I gave it a name. And if there's nothing in there, in other words, if there was nothing wrong, you just set it to nothing. But if you left it blank, we're going to say BTC ID number plus field is required. All right. If the pattern doesn't match, so that says grab that pattern, and what's that pattern? That's this. So grab that pattern and test that pattern against the ID number. And if that doesn't match, okay, then print in ID valid. In other words, that's going to print this. If it's not one of those two things, those are the only two things that I could find that I wanted to check for in here. So if it wasn't one of those, it must have been okay. And also notice that in these two cases, I returned false because there's no sense in going on. There's an error in there. So I returned false saying, get the heck out. Then for the next several fields, the first name, the last name, the address, and the city, these are all the same except the field name changes. Again, it says if the length is 0, you'll say first name is field is required. Otherwise, you'll write nothing out there. If the last name has got nothing in it, it'll say last name is required. Last name field is required. Otherwise, it'll write nothing. The address, if there's nothing there, it will say address field is required. Otherwise, it'll write nothing. And the city, if there's nothing there, it will say city field is required. Otherwise, it'll write nothing. Any questions on any of that? All right. Then with the zip and the email and the phone number, I had to do more work. The zip, remember, there were two patterns. So again, if there was nothing in it, it should come back and say zip code field is required. Otherwise, again, what am I doing here? I'm saying grab that first pattern and test it against the zip code. Grab that second pattern and test it against the zip code. And what this literally says by using and here, all right, if it turns out that for instance, for the zip code, I put in hello, all right, it's going to fail. And it doesn't matter which one of these, because as soon as this one fails, the whole thing fails. All right, so if neither one of these patterns are met, then print out that zip valid message, which again said zip code must be a number, or number, slash number format. All right. The email, again, check if it was 0. If it was, email field is required. Otherwise, again, grab that pattern that I showed you before, test that against my email field. If it doesn't match, then you've got to say the email must be validated. I'm sorry, a valid email must be entered or something like that, whatever I set up here. Email must be validly formed. All right. And then finally, for the phone number, the phone number was virtually identical to the way it was done for the zip code. Again, if there's nothing there, phone number field is required. Otherwise, match those two patterns. If neither one of them match, then you say phone number must be in either, again, the 5 NNNN or N, whatever it was, okay, for the phone number. And again, if that wasn't the case, write nothing. So again, I didn't mean to run through that too quickly, but notice if I do run this, again, if I put nothing in there, okay, ID field is required. And if I put in a bunch of garbage, all right, must be in that format. So if I put that in, now that's okay, and the first name is required. And you can see as I'm working my way down, the last name is required. Because they were all required. So the zip code, again, if I put in garbage, must be in that one of those two formats. You'll notice if I put in NNNNN, it's okay. Well, it should be okay. Oh, it's because those aren't numbers. All right, so that's required, but if I come back here and I put an 8 in there, it jumps back here. Okay? And that's okay. And that's okay. Okay? So the email, now the phone number, again, must be in one of those formats. So, all right, so it can be like that. All right, or I could put those in parens. Boom. Questions on that one? Anything that doesn't make sense on there? All right. Then I'll show you quickly the last one. This was the jQuery. All right, look very similar to the last one, but the big file was this one. This is the one that gave me fits, and it was mainly because of stupid stuff I did. All right, such as I had first name. Sometimes I had it with a big N, sometimes with a little n. You can't do that. And one of my students, Zane, who's a second-year student, I was trying to add methods, and I had some problems with it. And he said, well, use mine. So I did kind of pilfer his. All right? And what this basically says is I want to be able to do any regular expression. I want to be able to pass it in. So anytime you see a regex there, and there, that's what's being passed into here to make sure that the format's okay. All right? So here's the rules. ID number, required, and it must be in that, it must match that pattern. First name required, last name required, city required, address required, and you see how goofy the syntax is for this. All right, you miss a comma, all right, and the whole thing gets screwed up. Zip, again, required, and the regular expression. Now, there's supposed to be a thing called US zip. I tried using it, but it didn't like it. Then I went back and read it, and I found two examples. On one, all the person did was use it, boom, it worked. Then on the other one, the guy said, oh no, you've got to add that because that's an add-in file for this, and you've got to add that as another JavaScript file. I don't know which is right. I don't really care. It works. All right. The phone, again, notice here, so everything that you see right here, that's one pattern. Does that make sense? The pipe sign that you see after that dollar sign means or. So this means 3 digits, a hyphen, 3 digits, a hyphen, 4 digits, or parenthesis 3 digits, parenthesis space, 3 digits, hyphen, 4 digits. So either one of those patterns. All right. Again, for the email, I use the same one that I showed you before for the JavaScript. All right. And so those are your rules. And then these are the messages, again, that you want to come up based on those. And I just decided to use the same message, required field, and followed by the name every time, just so it looked pretty standard. All right. And again, there was a regular expression for the ID number. There was a regular expression for the zip code. There was a regular expression for the phone. There was a regular expression for the email. All right. So again, with those, if I go and run that, I know I already started showing you this before, but notice, so now if I come in here, it already changes and it tells me what the right format is. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But if I put another one in there, boom, it pops back. All right. So now that one's okay. This was anything. Again, this was anything because I didn't put massive checks in there. This was anything. All right. This you've already seen, so if I start putting in, boom, it breaks right away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, it's okay. Now it's not okay. Okay. So now it's all right. All right, that's not a valid email address. That is a valid email address. Boom. Same kind of thing. All right. And that validated. Questions on that one? All right. Then just to show you, and again, you haven't had this class yet, but just to show you, I just wanted to mention this to you, and I'll try to do it very quickly. But when you work with XAMPP, all right, and I don't know if Denny's having you do anything with XAMPP or not, but when you do work with XAMPP, again, in here, I'm not doing anything with MySQL, but I'm just so used to turning them both on. Now, my machine is both a server and a client. So when I come in here now, then my PHP files have to be saved under the C drive in a folder that's called XAMPP, and then in a folder under that called htdocs. So I've got a thing in here that I now call working. And notice what I've done in here. I want to show you these 5 files. Every one of them starts like this. Because what I've done is I pull those 37 lines out that you saw that were at the beginning of each and every single one of those HTML files. All right, but since this is PHP, I had to change the extension here to PHP, and I had to change the extension, well, you'll see that in just a minute, for all the other files to PHP. And at the bottom, there's my footer. So again, what I ended up doing was I have an includes folder, and I have in that includes folder my header stuff. That's those 37 lines that you saw before. 38, I guess, with a blank. And I've got the footer stuff, which again is 42 lines. The good news about, and the reason that you do it that way, and I think you all get this, is if I want to make changes now, I'm changing it in one place. That's it. All right. But I did want to show you on here because I just went over it too quickly. But the other thing I had to do over here was I had to change all those to .php extensions, because originally they were .html extensions. All right. Other than that, I made no changes in here. Then to run this, all right, I just say http : you don't even need the http, / localhost / and it's, I think it was working. There it is. All right, there's the about page. There's my HTML5 validation. It still works the same way. There's my JavaScript validation. Still looks the same. There's my jQuery page, and that still looks the same. So you see, with very few changes, all right, I could take this and make it something that you could stand up and put onto a server. All right, that's what the PHP class that you take in fall, the 152, 148 class, is about. And even though Mr. Roberts made his comment about not liking RDD, a good half of that class is basically setting up HTML forms that allow you to either enter information into a database, modify existing database information, or delete database information. Because then you're starting to develop, you're starting to put the pieces together, so to speak. All right, so I did that quickly, but any questions on anything I went over? I hope that helped.
The JavaScript, you had error, like first name error, to relate to the errors.
Yes.
Audit, and then you put in a span.
Yes.
Can I see that quick?
Sure. And it really doesn't matter. I can show it to you on this one because,
It's the same.
yeah.
So Okay, then, so class error, and then the ID is, and the name. How come you have to put class error in there?
I put class error in there because if you look at the associated CSS, and I always forget which of these two files it's in. It's either in Jeff or it's in the other one. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
that's for class equals error. And remember, since I used HTML5 templates, all right, the free HTML5 templates, that's why when you look in here, that's what gave me the print and the styles. I didn't try to monkey with those. I tried to take all the stuff that I wanted to do myself and I put it into my own. Okay? Does that make sense?
Gotcha.
And the other thing too, and this is even, maybe you were told this last semester, maybe I should have said it, but what you really should be getting used to doing too is really, siphoning your folders out like this too. Your CSS should be in a CSS folder, your images in an image folder, my includes here, which are those header and footer, and it includes folder, the JS, okay, in a JS folder. Some people even take all of this stuff, whether it's HTML or whether it's PHP or something else, and they create a folder for that they call source or SRC, and they put it in there. All right, I'm not that concerned with how you, what you call it exactly and whatever, but I'm concerned that you start doing that and really setting it up well. All right, and the last thing I'll show you, this was one of the, where did I put it? I don't even know if I still have it. Let's see. This was one of the second year students. See how he set his stuff up? And that's on me. I should have done a better job. He knows better than that. And there's no reason he should have done that. The site itself looks really, really nice. When you look at it, you see how he even has a fade in and a move down? He did that, and that's cool. All right. And the stuff in there is fine. He should have worked on this because that's not spread out very nicely. But notice with his JavaScript, everything is cool. With a jQuery, all right, he said it, and that's all good. The bottom line is the content correct? You're probably not going to have a lot of people, you won't have a manager or somebody else who comes up and says, gee, Roger, why'd you do that? But I will tell you that the problem with doing stuff like that is if you don't fix it and somebody else ends up maintaining your code, they're probably not going to fix it because they're going to have to go back and fix every path if they were to put folders and stuff in here. But I had to put a note onto his that says, fix this for the next iteration. All right? Okay, anything else? Any questions? Other questions?
Could I see the jQuery again?
Sure. Or maybe not.
Well, I would like to get a copy of that, actually.
So you're talking about the actual jQuery JS file? That one?
Yeah, I just want to see the top of the regular expression.
And I will tell you, if you watch that particular tape that I referenced to you, it's 12 minutes and 56 seconds. What they show in there, as an example, and to my knowledge, no one did this, including me. No one. But one of the things, we go back and we look at this. Because I don't remember if I said it or not. If I didn't, it's on me for not saying it. Email address, okay. Nope. But what would have been a good idea, again, I didn't ask for it, so I would not take off for that if you didn't do it anyway. What would have been a nice idea, this is a Blackhawk site, correct? One of the things that they show in that tape, near the end of the tape, is how to create your own custom method, and they say that it'll only accept an email that ends with @webucator.com. You could have done that would only have accepted at the end at blackhawk.edu or at students.blackhawk.edu. That would have probably been a much cleaner way of doing it, because what that would do would be to force a student to use a Blackhawk email. And again, you might think this is not that big a thing. It's such a big thing you don't realize. Up until about 5 years ago, students were not required to send stuff to instructors using their Blackhawk email. And I remember some of you might know John Norland. He's one of the Gen Ed instructors. He was telling me how one of his students sent him an email, and his wife happened to be walking by and looked at it, and it was from something like, what was it? Hottie1998@gmail.com. And he wanted to know she wanted to know who the hell he was getting that email from. And there was an instructor who was here for several years, and she left. She moved out to Ohio or Cincinnati, Ohio, because her husband got a job out there, Tamara Jarvis. And she started putting in her syllabus, I will only accept emails from email addresses that end with blackhawk.edu. So if you send me something, I don't care where it's from. I won't even open it. That's a really good policy. I do have certain students who, for whatever reason, they always send me stuff with their Gmail. Okay? But like I said, when you watch at the end of that, they show you how you can build a couple of those customized add your own methods. Okay? And there's other ways that it can be done, not just the way I showed you, which again, I pilfered from Zane. Okay?
Can you go back to that quick?
Yes, I
I
can.
didn't finish copying it. Sorry.
Well, what you need is you need Corey to send you a copy of the picture that he took.
Yeah.
Oh, do that.
The only thing is I'm missing like the one bracket at the end. That's fine.
But it's funny because I tried doing one similar to this. I don't know if I can show it to you or not, because I don't even know if I still have it or not. But it would be over, probably be in my garbage. Let's restore that. So originally I went and did build my own. I did the US, and I did this again with the only the Blackhawk email. And I put it at the bottom. I tried putting it at the top. I put it in the middle. I put it before this, which ended up my validate, and I put it after it. It didn't like it no matter where I put it. And I use basically, they do a good job of showing how to build it. They don't do a good job in that particular tape of showing you where to put it. All right. So I so last thing to show you this, because one of the things that I did was I started going out and kind of investigating this stuff myself. And what I ended up with this is called the most indispensable jQuery form validation reference guide. I didn't make that title up. It's a little grandiose, I thought, of the person who created it, but it's about 38 to 40 pages, and it's got boatloads of examples in it. So I put that out there. 15, if you don't like using the regular jQuery, there's a bunch of other plugins that you can use. There's 15 of them out here. Now, I'm sure there's more than that. This is a 2013 article. All right. And also web form validations, best practices, and tutorials. Found that. I thought that was pretty well written. All right. In addition, because we went over it quickly, and even though you're not going to get any homework on it, I found this. I just got sent this thing yesterday. So this was, if you've never gone out to the site that's called tutsplus.com, TUTS plus.com, they have all, literally if you go out there, it literally has, it's Avanto Tuts Plus, but they've got all sorts of tutorials on just about anything you can think of. So if I search it, for instance, and I come in here, let's just say I wanted to use Bootstrap, and I wanted to use Bootstrap 3. It's going to give me literally thousands of hits. All right, notice there's 720 pages. Okay, you can do the same thing in here with jQuery, and you're going to get the same kind of stuff. It's just there's tons of tutorials that are in here. All right, 77 pages worth. So there's at least 300 or 400 articles on that. All right. The problem with that is you can spend so much time reading this stuff, you never get anything done. You get real good at reading stuff. All right. So this was a 4-part series: an introduction to Ajax, beginner's guide to Ajax, an example of Ajax, and how to use jQuery's Ajax function. I've been reading them. I haven't finished it. I thought, though, the first one that I did read was fairly well done. All right. All right, that's 45 minutes. That's enough time. So the rest of the period is yours, all right, and to do with whatever you want to do with, all right? And just so you know, this doesn't affect any of you because by and large, everybody in this room has good attendance. But I am taking attendance, and it's 20% of your grade. So for these people who are showing, or they come in here and go, I'll be back in a couple minutes, then they don't show again, that's all going to be factored into your grade, along with your work. All right. I am working with a bunch of high school people, and one of the high school instructors that I'm working with said, you don't give tests? You don't give quizzes? No, and no. How do you grade them? On the work that they do. How do you know they're doing it? I have to trust people. All right. But if they're not doing their own work and they end up getting a job afterwards, they're not going to keep the job. You know? Google's only so good, just so you know. All right, that's enough.